Hello again. Good morning. It's still morning for me anyway. I have been asking you questions every day for at least a month, and I asked you to send me some questions to answer. So, boy, did you deliver. And it took me a few days to think over them because they are, true to form, a little complicated and thought provoking, which I love. I love. I just think that is so great. So, quite a few questions. We'll see if I do this in, two different videos or one video. It's probably going to be a lot of rambling, which you're probably used to if you watch my videos, and that's just kind of the way it is sometimes. So, I have a bunch of questions. I'll just start my big long list. So, and feel free to start a conversation in the comments over my reactions. And of course, these answers are just out of my own experience and my own thinking on them, so take from it what you will. So, number one, and I kind of paraphrased each question as I understood it when I wrote it down again because I'm not working directly from, my phone in the comments. The first one is, how do you manage the needs of children as a mother as you cannot turn them off and walk away from them? And how did you get quiet time to recharge? Well, I started answering this question in my first live stream, and then, thankfully I was interrupted by people actually watching my live stream, so I didn't get to finish it. And I think what is meant by this question is, children, they can be, especially when they're young, they can be very demanding, noisy, and it gives you a bit of difficulty in getting time to yourself. And how did I manage as a, INFJ parent, as a mother, to get that quiet time to myself so I could recharge, do my thinking, know what my own name was, that sort of thing. There was a lot of different things that I did. And at the time, it really felt like survival to me. And perhaps it was, but there were things that I just kind of did naturally. The first thing was I got up early in the morning before them so that I could have time to myself. I always say that I like to know my own name before I have to be a mom in the morning. The other thing was, young children take naps, and I was fairly scheduled with their nap time and bedtime so that I could have that time to either get things done or sit and, be by myself and have that quiet time. And even after they were a little bit older, when they didn't need naps anymore, I still did what I called quiet time, where they would go to their rooms or their bed and read a book so that I could go to my room and read a book or sit. And I've always had, kind of hobbies that took me away from them for a little while, where, their dad could watch them or whatever. I would always garden. And I would always try to get outside by myself. And I also took walks. And sometimes, they would come with me. I took a lot of walks with the baby strapped to the front of me, and thankfully they usually sleep during that. So you just have to, carve out time, like make time in your busy day with children to have time to yourself. And the other part is, thankfully, it seems very long while you're in it, but it is, in fact, short. The years are short, and it passes, and they get older. And then they have their own lives and their own things, and then the time that you spend with them is precious because they're more interested in hanging out with their friends and going to work and other things rather than hanging on mom all the time. So, if you're considering not becoming a parent because you're worried about quiet time to yourself, you will find it. And my children have been the hardest and most wonderful work that I've ever done. So I would recommend having children if that was what you were worried about. Okay, next question. Is INFJ, as far as the personality type, born out of trauma we all experienced as children when our needs were not met? And I've read a few articles about this. I've seen some comments about this. I don't know that I've ever watched a video on the topic or anything, but I don't believe that the INFJ personality type is born out of trauma, because if that were the case, I feel like there would be a lot more of us. Um, I come from a family of five children, and by and large, all of my siblings have, experienced the same childhood, the same things, and they if an INFJ personality type was born out of trauma or childhood experiences, then there would be more than just, in that five, there would be more than just me. I think, yeah, I'm not sure if it's genetic, if it's born in you. I do know from my own experience that some of our coping mechanisms and perhaps some of our, dark sided parts get accentuated by trauma, can get, like emphasized if our needs are not met. Those feelings of never fitting in, not being appreciated, the the feelings of not belonging. If your needs are not met in the way that you need them met as a child, those particular traits, in my case, those particular traits can get accentuated, brought out more. If you live in a family, that your needs aren't being met, and I think that is the story for most people. Their needs are not met all the way completely because, everybody's broken in some way, including our parents. So they can't take care of every need that we every need that we have. I'm so congested today. So do I think INFJ is born out of trauma? No. Do I think that the more difficult parts of our personality can be accentuated? Yes. So there's my answer on that one. Okay, here's another mother question. As an INFJ mother, how do you reconcile with your innate need of perfectionism and dealing with your children with different personalities? Well, this is one I never really thought about. And when my children were younger, I definitely wanted and needed to have a schedule for them. They ate at a certain time, napped at a certain time, went to bed at night at a certain time. And I needed them to look a certain way physically. I always tried to keep them very clean and dress them a certain way. And then I have 3 children, and all of their personalities are very different. And as far as they tested, they're all extroverts, although I suspect that my older son, my middle child, is actually an introvert, but he's very borderline. So I really, there's always some nagging things, and that's that perfectionism that I wish that I would have done better in raising them. I wish I would have, supported them more, perhaps supported them less in some areas so that they could be more independent. I could see a trend, especially with my boys, in making them dependent on me for things, probably perhaps out of a need to feel needed, or just maybe as an extension of like my nurturing sort of mothering tendencies, because I have a tendency to be very maternal, and I liked my babies securely attached to me, and I wanted to keep that attachment throughout their life, but you do have to let them go. So I've also I've also learned in being married to an ESFP that not everything needs to be as serious as I make it, because many things are not serious for my husband. He's very easygoing. You just kind of let things flow. And I've kind of learned from him that there's some things that you need to let go. I can't dictate and decide everything for my children. They do have to learn a little bit on their own. And they did learn to play on their own, which, because I needed time to myself, I needed to get things done, and they needed to, learn to entertain themselves and get along. And so, yeah, perhaps I needed to think a little bit more about this question. But the battle with perfectionism and raising children has really been within my own head. I don't like to criticize my children too much, because it hurts them and it hurts me at the same time when it hurts them. So, and I don't talk much about the house I grew up in, but I did kind of grow up in a very critical environment, and I did not want that for my children. So perhaps I kept some of my perfectionism and critical type nature to myself so as to not hurt my children. Keep harmony, keep them feeling loved and accepted for what they were. And I'm sure there were some times, if you talk to my children, I'm sure there were some times that I did not behave in that way and I was critical. But for the most part, I feel like I tried to be, gentle on them. Maybe too gentle. How do you find space to re-energize and gather your thoughts? When the weather is nice, I go outside and I will garden. I will pull weeds. I will wander around. I will, there's a lot of wandering around outside. I might have a hand rake or a shovel in my hand, and I will do different things. And that is where I find the space to do that. When it's cold outside, when the weather is not good for doing that sort of thing, then, I will get myself involved in like a cleaning type project, because for anybody that has children, they know if mom starts cleaning, they usually scatter. They usually kind of stay away because they don't want to be involved in that. So that kind of gets them out of my hair so I can think, And I also found, and it was because my therapist told me, I bought some earbuds so that I can sit in the evening after all my work is done and watch my videos, or listen to music, or watch movies or whatever with the earbuds in, so that I'm not hearing all background noise in my house, because that was always a very stressful thing for me, is to try to be concentrating on something and then still, try to be concentrating on listening to something and then still hearing all the background noise in my house, because I have a difficult time tuning all of that out and still focusing on what I'm trying to do. And just like reading a book, I really can only do it when there isn't people home or the house is quiet, that sort of thing. Now, we all INFJ need time and space to charge, and that may come across as being cold and distant. I did talk to my husband a little bit about this. Do I feel cold and distant to him? And he didn't, he's real easygoing too, so he doesn't really, he's like, whatever, she's still here. But he didn't really identify that he felt like I was cold and distant to him. I know that there are times when I have to like go in my room for a while or just walk away from the situation, and I feel like it's unfeeling or cold, but I'm not sure that it comes off that way to them. I didn't ask my kids if they feel that way about it, but I did ask my husband, and he, but I also, I spend a lot of time, I kind of dedicated my life to serving them and to taking care of them and my household and their meals, and, kind of nurturing whatever things that they want to pursue. So I feel like in the times that we are engaged and that I want, that I have the energy to put into them, as long as that is quality time, then the times that I need to disconnect don't feel as distant and cold. Maybe. I don't know. I'd have to do a survey with my household here. Okay, as an INFJ and a Christian, do you firmly believe that your faith provides you with most of the answers you seek? Sometimes. This is a tricky question, and I know the person that asked this question said I didn't have to answer it, but I kind of like questions like that, that you wouldn't necessarily want to answer because they're difficult or they may be offensive or whatever. Most of the time, I feel like my answers or my questions are answered, but there are always, and I think that's part of the human condition. There's always questions that you're never going to know the answer to. You're never going to understand why things happened on this side of heaven anyway. And, we can gather all the wisdom of the world and we still won't have all the answers because, all the world's wisdom is like foolishness to God. But I do feel like a lot of times the questions that I have are answered. And, we operate on faith and not sight. So we can't always have concrete things that are going to answer our questions. Sometimes there's things that we just won't know. There's things that I don't understand why it happened that way. And I can research and research and I can pray and pray and I don't always get the answers I need, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because I feel like that's what faith is about. It's kind of a leap. You have to just have faith that things are going to work out and that things are okay and this is what the plan was and that you're going to be protected. So, do I feel like I have all the answers? No, but that's okay. It doesn't really bother me that I don't know everything. And I always just try to figure out everything anyway. And sometimes I get the answers to things and sometimes I don't, you know. But I'm okay with that. In the time that things are happening, especially when things are hard, it doesn't feel good. But then sometimes later you look back at a situation and you can see where God's hand was in it and why things were allowed and where his will was. And, and sometimes I can see where I could have reacted more appropriately and trusted God better. And there's other times where I feel like, okay, this is where you wanted me, Lord. So this is okay. And I do ask a lot of, what are you trying to teach me here? What are you talking to God? What are you trying to teach me? What are you trying to show me? What are you trying to remove so that I am not dependent on things on this earth? So, yeah. Okay, what have you found to be the hardest obstacle to overcome in life? This is an easy answer: sadness. The hardest obstacle that I have had to overcome in my life is sadness. And I can't even say that I've overcome it because I have this like sadness that kind of sits in my heart all the time. It's like it kind of like ebbs and flows. Sometimes it comes up to the surface a little higher and sometimes it can go away. But there is always this underlying sadness that kind of frames everything that happens. Even in my happiest moments of my life, there's always this kind of underlying nagging, like, but what's going to happen next? And a commenter a long time ago said, you must have felt joy when your children were born. Absolutely, I did. I mean, I felt joy about them from the moment I knew that I was carrying them. But there still was this unexplainable, low-lying sadness that just comes with me. And I haven't overcome it. I've learned ways to deal with it. I've learned ways to manage it where it doesn't overwhelm me and it doesn't swallow me, but it's always kind of with me. It's always this, I call it this melancholy processing state where no matter what comes at me and what happens in my life, and no matter how I think cognitively I should deal with it, there's always a sadness behind it. Even when I go on, I go on this vacation to visit my brother, and I had this, incredible time on the West Coast with him and his family and my daughter. But there's an underlying sadness of, I left my boys at home. I bet they're missing me. I can't stay here forever. I have to go back to the real world, back to my life. And I can't just stay in that, that moment of like, I'm on vacation. Let's just have a great time and, just really enjoy my brother and his wife and his boys and, enjoy my daughter in a, rare time where we're not distracted by, dad and the boys. And I did have a good time. I do enjoy myself, but there's this underlying, I need to do more. I needed to appreciate this more. I need to be more in the moment. I need to take more pictures. It's just always this kind of sadness so that's my biggest obstacle in my life is this, this kind of cloud of sadness that has always kind of followed me. And I know I've had that since I was a child because there's always, my aunt used to call me Susie Sad Eyes. So, and it gets pointed out to me pretty frequently. My friends will tell me, you have sad eyes. Commenters will say that you have sad eyes. Some have said that they can't watch me anymore because it hurts them too much, that kind of thing. And I don't mean to have that, but they say the eyes are the window to the soul. And unfortunately, I have a sadness that follows me, and I have tried to medicate it away and it doesn't go away. Then, the medication just numbs it. So yeah, long rambly answer to a simple question where I could have just said sadness, but there you go. That was the answer to that. Okay, and then we have the last one here is why it takes a long time to figure out what I feel about a situation, not recognizing feelings, physical or emotional, and not understanding why I feel this way. Yeah, this question, I'm like, this is probably, like the bane of my existence. Like, why does it take me so long to understand what I feel as far as emotion about a situation? And not recognizing my own feelings as far as emotional or even physical, not having a good connection to your own body. And it depends on the situation. If I am alone, I definitely can recognize how I feel about something better. Because when you're with other people, or when I'm with other people, that FE is working. So you're absorbing other people's emotions and how they feel about a situation, which can be good or bad. If I'm with my daughter and my husband and they're having a great time, and then I'm picking up their like excited, I love all the people feelings, then I kind of, will mirror that. But if they're not having a good time, or if I'm with people that are sad or disappointed or, despairing and that sort of thing, well, then of course I'll pick that up. So why does this happen? I'm not sure. I'm sure that someone that understands the cognitive functions and how our brain works a little bit better, which I do not. I just relay, whatever I'm going through. I'm sure someone that has a better understanding and is a little bit more scholarly in that area could explain it better. But for me, sometimes I know right away how I feel about a situation, but then there's always like this tempering. Like I've got to then, put it into the cycle in my head and decide, is this how I feel about this situation? Is it going to be harmonious with the environment? Is it going to, help the other people around me? It's almost as if I can't have like feelings of my own about something. Like I have to reflect them off of someone else, or then see what they're feeling about it and then pour it into what I feel about it. And that was really confusing even when I was saying that. So hopefully that made some sense. But sometimes I know immediately how I feel about something, but then it has to get back into this, way that I process to try to figure it out. And why do I feel this way about it? Why is it that I don't like this, even though, and I'll give you a simple example, and it's kind of funny to me. My husband and I were at a home improvement store buying wood for our deck steps because they just rotted out and need to be replaced. Well, I had to use a restroom, and this particular home improvement store does not have paper toweling in the restroom after you wash your hands. They have those fan things. So I hate those fan things. I won't use them. And when I came out of the bathroom, my husband's like, your hands are wet. Are they out of paper towel? I'm like, no, they only have the fan and I won't use the fan. He's like, why won't you use the fan? I've known you for 20 plus years and I never knew that you won't use the fan. I'm like, I don't know. So then I have to think about it. Why is it that I don't like the fan in a public bathroom? And if I thought about it more, I don't like the noise. I don't like the feeling on my hands with it blowing and spraying the water everywhere. I don't like that my skin moves with the fan now because I'm getting older and it's not as elastic. And then it reminds me that I'm an old lady. But I didn't, when he asked me, I didn't immediately know why I don't like the fans in the bathroom. I have to think about it. And then, he thinks it's hilarious because he's like, what a weird quirk to have that you won't use the fans in the bathroom. But there's a lot of things like that. It took me probably 5 or 6 years in a row of going to my friend's cottage where we go out on the pontoon or out on the ski boat to explain to her that I don't like boats and explain to her why I don't like boats. Because I would always anytime I was in a boat, my whole life, I would feel like I can't wait till we get back to shore, but I could never explain to myself or to anyone else why. And it took me, 5 years in a row of going to my friend's cottage and going out on the boat to finally explain that I don't like it. And it makes me feel trapped. It makes me feel kind of sick. And I don't like boats, which is a kind of an odd thing where I live because, we have a lot of fishermen and boating and water sports, and that's all a really huge thing around here, and everybody loves to get on a pontoon. So the fact that I'm like, you know what, I don't like boats. Why don't I like boats? I'm not sure. You got 45 minutes and I might be able to explain to you why I don't like boats. But you also don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, so I continue to get on that boat and I'm miserable the whole time because my good friend loves her ski boat and pontoon. So keep harmony, just get on the boat and be miserable, I guess. But if there's an option, I will not. But anyway, so I actually got through all of the questions. I'm surprised, and in just under a half hour, which that's a long video. But yeah, so I hope that I answered them in a way that was understandable to you guys, and I appreciate the questions. They were great and made me think, and I appreciate that, of course. And yeah, so today's Friday. I will see you on Monday with our 11 a.m. live stream, and unless, something comes up and I can't do it, which I will let you know. But yeah, have a great weekend. Live in love out of the way you were created.